changes to the legislation for over 30 years. So it is a modernization, and I look forward to it ultimately going to standing committee. And at the end of the day, we will have a more accountable, transparent system because of this particular piece of legislation. And that is why I would encourage all members to get behind it and vote for it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Statement by members. Déclaration des députés. L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Negotiations on NAFTA are in camera, but the impacts will affect everyone across Quebec. People in forestry, our farmers, people working in manufacturing, the aeronautic industry, culture, and textiles. In fact, almost everyone will be affected by the consequences of the negotiations on the future of the free trade deal. In my riding, for example, we have a wonderful company, Rayonese. Rayonese set up shop in Saint-Jérôme in 1954 and employs some 200 people. Those are our people, Mr. Speaker. In 2016, they represented $9 million, and 98% of their production is exported to the United States. If the negotiations were to result in an elimination of the preferential tariff for our textile companies, companies like Rayonese could, in the medium term, have to transfer their production to other plants in the U.S. or elsewhere in the world, in fact. The Bloc Québécois will never accept.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today we celebrate World Pharmacist Day. This celebration has a particular significance in Canada this year as we celebrate 400 years of pharmacy in Canada, with the anniversary of Canada's first pharmacist, Louis Hébert, settled in Quebec in 1617. This year's theme for World Pharmacist Day is From Research to Healthcare, and today we celebrate the work of pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists who recognize that taking care of patients means both developing and providing the medicines and education to tackle today's health challenges. Les pharmaciens sont des acteurs.
Pharmacists are important players in the delivery of healthcare services. They're a vital source of information and assistance in our neighborhoods. They provide vaccines. They're involved in managing and preventing chronic illness. And in several jurisdictions, they prescribe medication for minor ailments.
Of Canada's pharmacists. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday was the anniversary of the passing of a very special Edmontonian who served Canadians both in this House and on the battlefield during World War II, the Honourable Marcel Lambert. Mr. Lambert served overseas with the Royal Canadian Armour Corps during the Second World War, where he was captured during the Dieppe raid in 1942, spending the next 3 years in a German POW camp. In 1957, he was elected as Member of Parliament for my riding of Edmonton West, a position his constituents allowed him to hold for the next 27 years. In his time in office, he served as Minister of Veterans Affairs, as Canada's 25th Speaker of the House, and like myself on the Estimates Committee. I hope I have the support of this House in thanking this true patriot for his service to Canada, both here at home and abroad. Marcel, Edmonton, and Edmonton West will always have a special place for you in our hearts. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise today to highlight National Forest Week and to remind everyone of the natural beauty of our forests, as well as the environmental, social, and economic benefits it provides. I'd invite all members to consult the 27th annual report of the State of Forests in Canada, which will be tabled later this week. The report sheds light on the commitment to economic growth and protection of the environment as part of the Canada 150 celebrations in Canada, which with its large forests. Thanks to world-class investments in science and innovation, the Government of Canada is seeking to enhance the competitive nature of the forestry industry and to diversify markets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow my constituent Petra Schultz will arrive in Ottawa hoping to deliver a message to the Minister of Health and to Parliament. She speaks for a network of Canadian mothers and families whose loved ones have died from opioid use or who could have hope of recovery. I encourage all to view their heartbreaking messages of children lost to opioids at mumstoptheharm.com. They remind us that every victim is somebody's son, daughter, brother, or sister, somebody's someone. These mothers echo the NDP's ask. After more than 2,000 overdose deaths in our country this past year, why isn't this government declaring a national public health emergency? We must heed their call for expedited action on the opioid crisis, grant interim exemptions on all outstanding applications for supervised consumption services, initiate a national anti-stigma campaign, and launch a national advisory council modeled on Alberta's council. So many lives depend on it.
The honourable member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, with a heavy heart, I rise to recognize Joseph Hollett, a passionate and committed advocate for the marine life and history of New Brunswick. Taken too early from his family, friends, and community this summer, a resident of Campobello Island, Joe Hollett died while rescuing an entangled North Atlantic right whale in the Gulf of St. Lawrence on July 10th. It is with great sadness that I remember Joe's tragic loss of life. I wish to extend my sincere sympathies to Joe's wife Darlene, his family, the marine community, the organizations that Joe represented, and of course, the residents of his beloved island of Campobello. Joe spent 15 years, most often in the most dangerous role of line cutter, working with his community to protect the marine life of New Brunswick, what could rightly be called one of our most natural, important resources. Mr. Speaker, Joe will be missed by many, remembered well, locally, nationally, and internationally. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to bring to the attention of this House the ongoing human rights abuses against the 50 million Sindhi people of Pakistan. Many other ethnic and religious minority groups, including Christians, Hindus, and Sufis, also call the Sindh province, including the cities of Karachi and Hyderabad, home. Over 1,200 cases of missing persons in Sindh have been reported since 2010. According to reports from the U.S. State Department, extrajudicial killings, torture, and targeted violence against ethnic and religious minority groups are common practices in the region, and the Pakistani government has done little to prevent this violence. Since February, over 150 political and human rights activists as well as journalists have gone missing in Sindh. Violence against women is rampant, with young girls frequently kidnapped and subjected to arranged marriages, including forced conversions to Islam. The state-sponsored rise of violence and extremism is a denial of the Sindh people's basic human rights. Canada has a duty to stand up now for the protection of the Sindhi people, not just through flowery words of support for the victims, but through actions that provide practical assistance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Niwa komakontik tanse, numayayatane, awapam tikuk. The Honourable Thelma Chalifoux, pun, a Métis from Alberta and first Indigenous woman in the Canadian Senate, died on St. Albert on Friday. She was 88 years old. It was a very touching private moment as we watched our dear mother, grandmother, and matriarch go back to her heavenly home, her eldest son, Robert Cloutier, is reported to have said. Chalifoux was active in helping to get facilities and programs like friendship centres up and running for Indigenous Canadians. She was also interested in housing, education, suicide, incarceration, domestic abuse, cross-cultural training in government departments, and alcoholism. She was important in getting the Cree language taught in northern schools. Recently, she helped start the Michif Cultural Institute, a museum and resource centre in St. Albert aimed at preserving and promoting regional Métis culture. She was a trailblazer, a hero. Kaya pakisi, aka mi yimo, mase aka kitwam, kukum Thelma Chalifoux pun.
The honourable member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Mr. Speaker, last Saturday I and quite a number of colleagues and friends, including the Prime Minister, attended Arnold Chan's funeral. Arnold's last gift to us was a brilliant rendition of themes and variations on Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. That's exactly how I saw Arnold's brief time among us. A brilliant shooting star, illuminating, guiding, and fascinating. Arnold's intellectual brilliance was instantly obvious when you first met him. He's a walking, talking version of O'Brien and Bost. Not only did he know the arcane world of practice and procedure, he knew enough that reliance on the rules and procedure quickly leads to stalemate and frustration. Some people are very bright, some very wise. Arnold was both wise and bright, and therefore cherished by us all. Arnold was also determined. Scarborough celebrates Canada Day with a parade. while physically taxing, urging Arnold to give up the parade was a waste of breath. He made it. We have the picture to prove it. I believe it's my last picture with Arnold. I'll miss his smarts, his wisdom, his determination, and most of all, his sly sense of humor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, September 12th was the Casius Awards, which acknowledges cheesemakers in Quebec. It's a wonderful opportunity to showcase the Quebec industry and to shed light on its creators. I wanted to salute all of these passionate cheesemakers, including Jean Morin, owner of the Sainte Isabelle de Warway cheese factory in my riding, who won 3 of the 4 major prizes. It's an exceptional product. His cheeses include Le Louis d'Or, the Religieuse, and the Pionnier, and each year they win prizes in this competition. These are exceptional cheeses produced, and he is also a visionary man and an entrepreneur. He ensured the survival of the community through his work, and I want to congratulate him for everything that he's done for the community.
The Honourable Member for Glengarry, Prescott Russell.
Monsieur le Président, aujourd'hui... Mr. Speaker, today, September 25th, is Franco-Ontarian Day. I'd like to thank the community groups, the Francophone community groups in Glengarry, Prescott, Russell, and the region's Francophones, who number more than 65,000. I'd also like to acknowledge the work accomplished by the Association Canadienne Française de l'Ontario, the Assemblée de la Francophonie de l'Ontario, the Conseil scolaire francophone, the Cité collégiale, and the group that I marched with this morning in celebration, and the many other groups that contribute to the vitality of the Franco-Ontarian community. Happy Franco-Ontarian Day.
I would also like to take this opportunity to mention that September is National Chicken Month. This is a month where we recognize the hard work of the 2,800 chicken farmers across our country. Our chicken farmers provide Canadians from coast to coast to coast with safe, fresh, and high-quality chickens. Thank you for your hard work.
The Honourable Member for Brampton North.
Speaker, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. This summer, I hosted a community dodgeball tournament to help connect the youth of my riding with the local fire department and local professionals. Youth had the opportunity to ask questions, seek mentorship, and play a few games of dodgeball. Mr. Speaker, sports often creates a comfortable environment for young people to feel comfortable to ask questions they may not otherwise ask. It is our responsibility as leaders in our community to create positive environments for young people to seek guidance, have productive conversations, and learn from our first responders who they often otherwise meet in stressful situations. And in case you were wondering, Mr. Speaker, the fire department came out victorious over the young professionals with a thrilling 2-1 victory. They ain't firefighters for nothing. Next year, I invite all members to come to my annual dodgeball game. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Speaker, last week, Jewish people gathered with loved ones to celebrate their blessings during Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. To all Canadians of Jewish heritage and descent, a belated Shana Tova. This is a time not just for celebration, but also for reflection as Yom Kippur approaches. As I join in that reflection myself, I'm troubled by the raft of aggressive acts of anti-Semitism that took place over the summer months. BC, Manitoba, Quebec, and Ontario were home to hateful verbal attacks, graffiti on playgrounds and bike paths, social media threats, and anti-Semitic literature campaigns. Mr. Speaker, anti-Semitism exists, it's on the rise, and I ask all Canadians to be vigilant to combat it. Tonight, all parliamentarians are invited to celebrate the high holidays and share in this reflection with the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Centre for Holocaust Studies on Parliament Hill. Together, we can and must stand in solidarity against the rise of anti-Semitism.
Honourable member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, today Rick Mercer announced he will be moving on from the Rick Mercer Report after 15 hilarious seasons. And most members in this House would recognize Rick as well from his rants on This Hour's 22 Minutes, two of the most successful shows in Canadian TV history. But like most Canadian icons, Rick Mercer has small-town roots. Townies like the member for St. John South Mount Pearl and I would recognize Rick from his school days when he rose to local fame as half of Corey and Wade's Playhouse. If you think slander, libel, and 3 months in juvie is a bad way to start a career, well, think again. Or my favorite role of his as a psychologist cab dispatcher in the film Secret Nation. But, like all good things from Newfoundland, Rick Mercer now belongs to Canada. Rick, my brother still lives in your old house. You left your PWC commemorative school president gavel in the basement. You should now have plenty of time to thank your life partner, Gerald Lutz, reclaim said gavel, and perform at the LSPU Hall in our hometown. Rick, we can't wait to see what you do next.
Honourable member for Victoria.
Around the world, Jews are celebrating the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It is a time for renewal, reflection, and a commitment to Jewish values in action. Jewish values like Tikkun Olam, which means repairing the world, and Tzedakah, a moral obligation to social justice and charity. This year, Mr. Speaker, has been particularly difficult. Organizations like the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Centre have reported a rise in incidents of hate all across Canada. While anti-Semitism has never gone away in this country, recent factors have resulted in the resurgence of explicit prejudice and discrimination. So it seems especially important this year to gather and to act in solidarity with our fellow communities to show that love is greater than hate. On behalf of all New Democrats, I say Shana Tova, Ome Tuka, to the vibrant Jewish community in my riding of Victoria and to Jewish families all across Canada. May you have a sweet year filled with happiness and good health.
Honourable member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate the member for Abbotsford, our former trade minister, on his hard work and success in negotiating the Canada-European Free Trade Agreement, or CETA. This agreement came into effect on Thursday, September the 21st. This means that there are now new tariffs on 98% of Canadian goods sold in the EU. That's over 9,000 types of Canadian products sold duty-free in the largest and most affluent consumer market in the world, home to over 500 million people. In 2006, Canada had free trade agreements with only 5 countries. In 9 years, successive Conservative governments brought that number to over 40 free trade agreements and concluded free trade negotiations with 51 countries. Conservatives know how to sign deals that benefit Canadians and Canadian businesses. We're proud of the member for Abbotsford, and we're proud of our party's record on free trade.
The Honourable Member for Sudbury. Mr. Speaker, today is September 25th, and it's Franco-Ontarian Day. I want to pay tribute to a Franco-Ontarian to whom many of us owe a large part of our identity, Gaëtan Gervais from Sudbury. He taught, contributed, and left generations of people with a wealth of Franco-Ontarian heritage. He wrote books that are still read today. As a real leader, he wanted to make a difference in post-secondary education and research in French. Therefore, he created the Institut Franco-Ontarien. In recognition for his contribution, he received the Order of Canada in 2013, and I had the privilege of attending the ceremony. Mr. Speaker, will always be grateful for his efforts. When he was a professor of history at Laurentian University, he co-created a green and white flag with a lily and a trillium, our Franco-Ontarian flag. It was raised for the first time on September 25th, 1975, at the University of Sudbury. Gaëtan, thank you for your great contribution, and thank you for having given us our beautiful flag.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it seems that the Prime Minister does not understand that his plan to increase taxes will have real consequences on the ability of local businesses to be competitive and to hire workers. It's hard enough already for business owners to make a living, and now the Liberals are going to get in the way of hiring new employees. When will the Prime Minister admit that his tax increases are going to kill jobs? And when will he get rid of his plan to increase taxes? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we understand very well that our system, as is, encourages the wealthiest to incorporate in order to benefit from a lower tax bracket than the middle class. We are going to continue with our measures, but at the same time, we know that it's very important for small and medium business to invest in their businesses, and that's very important for us. With a very low tax rate for small and medium business, we'll be able to continue to ensure important investments in our economy. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister can't answer simple questions. The Liberals have tried explaining their tax hikes to Canadians, but it isn't working. They failed to convince Canadians that their plan to hike taxes on local businesses will do anything but harm entrepreneurship and put good jobs at risk. If the Liberals were listening to Canadians, they would hear that raising taxes will keep local businesses from creating jobs, employing Canadians, and investing in their communities. Will the Prime Minister finally listen to local business people and cancel these tax hikes?
Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we have a tax system that encourages wealthy people to incorporate to pay a lower level of tax than the middle class. We know that doesn't work. The member opposite either knows or should know that the system right now actually has a low level of tax for small businesses. We are going to continue with that low level of tax because we know that is what encourages people to invest in active businesses, to help us to grow our economy, to create great jobs. That's what we're working towards, and we're going to continue on that path with a fair tax system.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, since the Prime Minister won't answer these simple questions, I'll try the Finance Minister. First, he launched his consultation in the middle of summer. Then he doubled down on these tax hikes before he'd even heard from Canadians. Nobody believes that the Finance Minister cares what Canadians think. Every time the Finance Minister says he's out listening to people, Canadians say he's ignoring them. And this weekend, after hearing the Finance Minister explain his plan, chambers of commerce from across the country voted 99% against it. Why is it that every time the Finance Minister explains what he's doing, more and more people are against it?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
We're going to continue with our approach, and that approach is to make sure that we don't encourage wealthy Canadians to incorporate to pay a lower rate of tax than the middle class. We are going to, at the same time, listen to Canadians, and that is exactly what I've been doing. So I was with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce this past weekend to hear what they had to say. I have been across the country in Newfoundland and New Brunswick and British Columbia and Quebec and Ontario, Nova Scotia. We're going to continue to do that because we want to take people's ideas into account, but we know that Canadians want a foundation tax system that's fair, one that allows them to invest, one that allows long-term growth for our economy.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce is asking for an apology, nothing less than an apology, from the Minister of Finance, and said that describing Canadian tax policy for the last 45 years as a series of loopholes is insulting for business people who have upheld them in good faith to start their business, to save for retirement, and sometimes even to not close their doors. Mr. Speaker, will this Liberal government apologize and show respect to job creators all over Canada? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we know that our tax system encourages the wealthiest to incorporate to pay a lower level of tax than the middle class. We know that this is the case. We know at the same time that the Conservatives don't mind letting the wealthy to pay a lower level of tax. We want a system that is fair, a system where there are opportunities for all Canadians, where we can continue investing actively, but also ensure that the system is fair for everyone in our country. The member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, even the provinces are opposing this tax reform. Manitoba, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, Newfoundland and Labrador are against it. The Premier from Manitoba said, "Who do you trust to create jobs in Canada? Small businesses or the federal government that taxes those small businesses? When will this Liberal government show respect to these job creators and stop trying to constantly get more money out of their pockets?" The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we know that for our economy, it is very important to invest. It is very important to have a tax system that is fair. We know that now, right now, the level of growth in our country is the highest that it has been in the last 10 years. Over the last year, we've seen more than 350,000 new jobs created in our country. This is very significant. With a level of growth like that, it is good for companies, small and medium businesses, to invest in the future. That is our approach, and now our approach works.
Essex.
Mr. Speaker, the third round of NAFTA renegotiations has started, yet the U.S. has not brought forward expected demands on rules of origin, leaving 550,000 Canadians worried in the auto sector and having great uncertainty. Even trade experts are concerned that no serious offer is tabled, making the year-end deadline for the deal impossible to meet. Auto workers were stunned the sector was not even identified as a priority. How can the minister be trusted to protect workers without significant changes to labour provisions, a lack of an auto policy, and potential changes to rules of origin in play?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I want to assure Canadian workers in the auto sector and in all sectors of our economy that we are strongly and in a very prepared and confident way defending their interests at the NAFTA negotiating table.
Excellent.
That is why we have put forward the strongest, most progressive labour provisions ever put forward by Canadian trade negotiators. When it comes to autos, I held a consultation on Friday afternoon with representatives of the auto sector. This is very much top of mind for us, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent. L'honorable député de Berthier.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Canada's chief negotiator is expecting that NAFTA negotiations will include rules of origin, but that hasn't been part of the discussion. With no updates from this government, the automotive sector is concerned about the effect of rules of origin under new NAFTA. Given that there has not been a new car factory in Canada for 10 years and that Mexico has built many, are the Liberals going to be honest with Canadians and guarantee that they are going to protect jobs in the automotive sector? The Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, as I already said in English, workers from all sectors of Canada are very important to our government, and we are working very hard, very constructively at the negotiating table. That is why we have a chapter on workers' rights which is very strong and progressive. When it comes to the automotive sector, I've had productive discussions with the leaders of that sector, and I can assure Canadians that the automotive sector is very important to our government. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. That's not reassuring. Within the context of negotiations with U.S. and Mexico, supply management is under attack. Our producers are worried about the Liberal government's ability to stand up for producers. Several times, there have been protests, or rather the government has said that it supports supply management, but when the microphones are closed, there seems to be breaches in the agreement with the Canada-Europe agreement. Will the government commit today to not open a breach into our supply management system? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we are here to help our dairy producers and the entire sector and to defend supply management. I would like to remind everyone that the United States have a surplus in their dairy sector, and that's what we have said at the negotiating table. We are determined to work with our farmers, industrial partners, and others to continue to defend Canada's interests. We vigorously defend our national interests.
That's not quite the answer that we were asking for. Mr. Speaker, this week, U.S. and Mexico planned a tag team against our supply management system during the NAFTA talks. Unfortunately for our producers, they are not in good hands with this government. When the cameras are rolling, Liberals will say they will protect supply management. But when they're off, the Liberals are giving more and more access to other countries like they have in CETA and now TPP 11. Can the Liberals promise to our producers that they will not grant further access?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to remind the member opposite of something that our chief negotiator said in a scrum yesterday, which is that at the negotiating table, we have not yet received U.S. proposals on the dairy sector, so it's important for people to understand that. When it comes to our dairy farmers, we will defend their interests vigorously at the NAFTA negotiating table. We are committed to working together with farmers, industry groups, and American counterparts to promote Canada's agricultural interests. We will fiercely defend the national interest and promote our values.
Excellent. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this weekend, over 98% of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce voted against these Liberal tax increases. Business leaders across the country have real concerns and real questions. What's the Minister of Finance answer? Well, he ignores them because he thinks they are tax cheats who are milking the system. Why is the Minister of Finance ignoring legitimate concerns from reputable business groups like the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in regards to his tax increases?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the short answer is I'm not. What we're trying to do is make sure that our system works. We're showing Canadians that, in fact, it encourages right now wealthy Canadians to incorporate so they can pay a lower tax rate than the middle class. What we're out doing is listening to Canadians. But we're explaining that, frankly, 2% of these corporations hold 80% of the passive investment income. So that is really important for Canadians to know. We know that helping middle-class small business to invest actively is critically important for our economy. Having a tax system that's fair is also critically important. We're going to serve those two goals.
Chief Opposition House Leader.
Speaker, this weekend it was clear he did not explain anything to the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and that's why they voted 98% against his tax increases. Now, Mr. Speaker, business leaders are seeing right through the hypocrisy of this Liberal tax increase. You know why? Because wealthy people like the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and their companies will not be touched by this increase. Now, I'm going to give the Minister of Finance another chance. Can he tell this House in what way Morneau Chappelle will be affected by these tax increases? Just one way.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we're trying to get at how the system works. And the way the system works is it encourages wealthy people to incorporate to pay a lower rate of tax than middle-class Canadians. That's not a system that makes sense. We know that what needs to happen is to take a look at the system to make sure that the kinds of things that give wealthy people an advantage that grows as they get wealthier, that we deal with those so all Canadians have an opportunity to be successful. That's what we're working towards, and that will help our system to be fair for the long term.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. And this is how the systems work. Throughout Canada, thousands of business owners, job creators, small business owners, they know how to manage their business and they know how to create jobs, but they are worried. Last week, I was in Alma and I met an entrepreneur, Mr. François Aymon, owner of Meubles Gilles Aymon, who said that these changes take away that would normally be used to reinvest in the company. This is a very worrisome proposal. Could the Minister of Finance explain to this House why he's attacking this entrepreneur and all the jobs he creates, but is leaving alone big businesses like Morneau Chappelle? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we have a system that encourages the wealthiest to incorporate to pay a level of tax that is lower than the middle class. We are going to protect small businesses. We want to protect small businesses like the one that he identified, because we know that a low tax rate, we'd have a very low tax rate, the lowest among G7, to continue to allow investments to be made. They can continue to invest in their businesses. That is very important, and we will continue with this approach because it is important for small and medium businesses throughout the country. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. The last thing that entrepreneurs need is another tax increase, and the Minister should understand that. When we know that the Prime Minister is showing contempt to SMEs who think that they don't pay their taxes, and yet also expresses a certain admiration for Chinese dictatorships. What's the Prime Minister doing today? He's meeting Chinese billionaires from the Alibaba Group. So, Mr. Speaker, why would the Prime Minister rather meet with Chinese billionaires instead of hearing the concerns of local business owners who are threatened?
Offers Canada's micro, small, and medium-sized businesses unparalleled opportunities to expand their markets overseas. SMEs are the engine of the Canadian economy, and trade means more growth for them and jobs for Canadians. Our Trade Commissioner Services provides support and advice to Canadian exporters who wish to do business online, and obviously are working with commercial online platforms. We are working very hard to promote e-exporting in support of Canadian business. Thank you.
Honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Speaker, instead of standing up for small business owners across the country, the Prime Minister today is in Toronto, wait for it, meeting with billionaires yet again. We also know that the Liberals, Mr. Speaker, including the Finance Minister, have no desire to help small business because the Minister's own family business, Morneau Chappelle, will be sheltered from this epic Liberal tax grab. Why are the Liberals, Mr. Speaker, why are the Liberals determined to give billionaires a break while placing the burden of their high spending ways on the backs of Canadian small businesses?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
We've done a review of our system, our tax system, and made sure that we get at what's most important. The system right now encourages people to incorporate, so they pay a lower rate of tax than middle-class Canadians. That's actually the way the system works. So I know that some of our colleagues from across the aisle might be comfortable with a system that allows the richest to have tax advantages not available to the rest. I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, that Canadians don't. We want a system that's fair. We know that a fair system allows small businesses to invest in their business. That's what we want to continue. A very low small business tax rate.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Milkmaid Nicolet.
Mr. Speaker, this weekend I was at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce's annual general meeting, and members hoped that the finance minister was there to listen to their concerns. And was he? But were disappointed as the minister deflected every single question. In response, almost 99% voted to oppose his unfair tax changes. Will the minister now accept the Chamber's offer to have town halls across this great country, listen to local businesses, explain why their taxes are going up, while the same changes do not apply to millionaire shareholders of firms like Morneau Chappelle?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I did spend a few minutes talking at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce meeting this weekend. I did because I wanted to make sure that we started with a frame of reference. I talked about how our system currently encourages the wealthiest to incorporate, so they pay a lower rate of tax than the middle class. But really what I did there was listen. I listened to what was going on. Small business owners there, the Chamber's there, told me what they thought about what we were trying to do. And I think we left with a better understanding of what we're trying to achieve. My view is they understand broadly that what we're doing is we're leaving a low tax rate so they can invest in.
Order. The honourable member for Kootenay, Columbia. Order.
Millions of Canadians use and love our national parks, but the government is now considering changing the ownership of some of their assets. This summer, Parks Canada issued a pre-feasibility study for divestiture or transfer of park infrastructure, including highways, dams and bridges. The total value of this infrastructure is upwards of $8 billion. The Ministry of the Environment said in a recent letter they have no plans at this time to divest itself of any of its assets. Will the Minister state clearly that she will rule out any proposal to sell off any part of Parks Canada now and in the future?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Parks Canada's core mandate is protect and present Canada's natural and cultural heritage. A significant portion of Parks Canada's assets are general infrastructure, such as highways, dams, non-heritage bridges that are not directly linked to our mandate. For instance, stretches of highway that cross through parks but otherwise fall under provincial jurisdiction. As indicated in Budget 2017, Parks Canada is developing a medium and long-term plan to ensure the effective and efficient management of its asset portfolio. I would imagine that most people would think that this is a responsible thing to do. To be clear, this is an initial exploratory study to inform future discussions. No decision has been made.
The member for Beloit-Chambly.
made except for the tender notice on buyandsell.gc.ca. So we have to really wonder what the government's intention is here. And Monsieur le Président, c'est un autre...
Mr. Speaker, this is yet another example of the Liberals who are quietly introducing privatization of our infrastructure. During their election campaign, they never mentioned it. And this is without even mentioning the infrastructure bank that they set up to please their Bay Street friends to attract investment. Why are the Liberals stubbornly handing over our public assets to their friends on Bay Street? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for the question. To ensure more detail, this is an exploratory study. There are discussions to come regarding suggestions for infrastructure connected to our mandate, including roads, dams, and non-heritage assets. We must look at this. This is something that is important and fair. The Honourable Member from Mégantic-L'Érable, the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, the Alberta Federation of Agriculture, the Premiers of Manitoba and Nova Scotia, everyone is denouncing the tactics of the Minister of Finance, who is wanting to reach into farmers' pockets to pay its deficit. In the mandate letter for the Minister of Agriculture, it's written that the government must leverage its policies and financial tools to support agriculture. Why is the minister doing the contrary? Why is he using the government's financial tools to undermine the survival of family farms in Canada?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We want to create a fair tax system, and that's why we are consulting Canadians. We are listening to the concerns of farmers and encourage them to share their ideas on how to create a fair tax system. Being a farmer, I fully understand that farmers have to save in order for a rainy day. If you have problems with repairing buildings, buying machinery, investing in your business. In fact, the dollars that are invested are there for your business. That is what the dollars are there for. We have and will continue to make sure that the farming sector continues to thrive.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, dozens of farm and ranch families came to an open house in High River yesterday to loudly voice their concerns with these punitive Liberal tax changes. They are angry, they are frustrated, and they are worried that the Liberals are trying to take away the legacy that they have built for generations, their family farm. And they have reason to be concerned. Tax experts agree these changes could wipe out the family farm. Will the Minister of Agriculture finally be the voice for Canadian farmers? Will he stand up and demand an extension to the tax consultations on these changes? Or does he really believe that the family farm is not worth saving?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have and will continue to support the farmers. These are complex transactions, and we're consulting farmers on the proposed changes. We want their views on how to better accommodate family transfers. We want to help farmers to transfer their farms, and I can assure you this government has consulted, will continue to consult with the farmers to make sure that it is easier for farmers to transfer their family farm to their families. Thank you, Mr.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, Angela is a farmer in my riding. She said these Liberal tax changes are a man-made disaster that will devastate rural communities across Canada. She, like dozens of other Alberta farm families, left their combine in the middle of harvest to come to a town hall in High River and voice their concerns. They are fighting for their livelihood. They're fighting for their children's future. They're fighting for their family farm. Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister of Agriculture stop kowtowing to the Minister of Finance and commit today to extend the consultation period on these tax changes?
Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said many times, I have and will continue to consult with farmers on every issue that affects the farmer. On these tax changes, what will take place is any dollars that is invested in the corporation is there for the corporation. It's there for the farmers to invest in their farm, to invest in their property, to expand their property, to create more business. That is what it's all about, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Order. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, farmers, agricultural producers and their families are honest people. who deserve to be treated as such by their government and their Minister of Agriculture. Why does the minister remain silent when his finance colleague is showing contempt for farmers throughout all of Canada? The request is simple and costs nothing, that the Minister of Finance extend the consultation period. What side is the Minister of Agriculture going to choose? That of insults and the end of family farms, or that of reason to denounce the arrogance of the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister? The Honourable Minister of Finance.
What I'd like to say is it's a pleasure to work with the Minister of Agriculture in considering how we can best listen. We know that for very wealthy Canadians, there's a system that encourages them to arrange their affairs so they can pay a lower rate of tax than middle-class Canadians. What we also know is that farmers are very important to our economy. They're very important to Canadians. So listening to them is important, making sure that they'll continue to thrive, continue to be able to invest in their farm, continue to pass to the next generation. These are important objectives for our government, certainly important objectives for all Canadians. So we're listening to make sure that that is achieved.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Order. Mr. Speaker, when he was asked last week, and again today, about the referendum in Catalonia, the Prime Minister refused to comment on the arrests of democratically elected Catalan leaders. Now, there's also the question of the Kurdish referendum on self-determination. So this is becoming, once again, an important international issue. So my question is simple. Does the Canadian government support people's right to self-determination? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, as far as Catalonia is concerned, Canada has a friendly relationship with Spain. The question of Catalonia is a domestic issue for Spain. We hope that a solution to that domestic debate will be found in a harmonious and respectful manner within the constitutional framework of Spain.
Honourable Member for North Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, this morning the Liberal government refused to support my private member's bill on the right to housing. Previously, the Liberals said that they are planning to include the right to housing in upcoming legislation. But today, they said a legal right wasn't necessary. Instead of hope and hard work, the Liberal slogan should be hype and hypocrisy. Housing advocates agree that Canada needs a legal right to housing. So why is this Liberal government denying Canadians this important human right?
The Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to express how strongly this government feels about inclusive development, inclusive growth that benefits everyone and gives the right to everyone to have a standard of living and the ability to fully participate in the life of our society. We are investing, Mr. Speaker, for the first time in 50 years, significant resources in building our housing system and decreasing over the next years by half the number of renters in Canada that are living in either inadequate or unaffordable housing conditions.
The Honourable Member for York Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has repeatedly spoken out against the undemocratic and authoritarian actions of the Maduro regime in Venezuela, including through public statements and at the Organization of American States. From the creation of the illegitimate National Constituent Assembly to the imprisonment of political opposition leaders such as Leopoldo Lopez, it is clear that Venezuela is suffering a deep descent into dictatorship. In response to this anti-democratic behaviour, can the Minister inform the House what decisive actions Canada is taking against the Maduro regime?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
I'd like to thank the member from York Centre for his question and for his hard, committed work on this issue. Our government deplores the actions of the Maduro regime, as I believe all members of this House do. That is why on September 22nd, we were pleased to announce strong, targeted sanctions against 40 leading members of the Maduro regime.
Excellent.
Last week in New York, I attended the Lima Group meeting of like-minded countries committed to the restoration of democracy in Venezuela, and I was pleased to announce that Canada will host the next meeting of the Lima Group. We will not stand by as the government of Venezuela robs its people of their fundamental rights.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party is the party for free trade. Brian Mulroney and Stephen Harper negotiated most of Canada's current free trade agreements, including NAFTA. And now we have a selfie king who seems to think that renegotiating NAFTA is just a photo opportunity to take a picture of his new socks. This renegotiation will have a long-term impact on our economy, and our Prime Minister needs to stop playing the clown. This is enough. Will the Prime Minister finally admit that he's not up to the task of defending our companies? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, Canada and our government are defending the interests of our country and our economic interests, and we're doing so strongly. Our trading objectives are clear. We want to protect NAFTA as a creator of jobs and economic growth. We want to reduce bureaucracy to make the work of small businesses easier. We want to make NAFTA more progressive, and we want to maintain the aspects of NAFTA that are in our national interest. That is what we will do. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Well, Mr. Speaker, the last weeks have proven that our small businesses have real cause for concern. On the one hand, we have the U.S. government negotiating hard for its citizens. On the other, we have a Prime Minister who shows every day that he doesn't understand the needs of Canadian businesses and the possible issues of renegotiating NAFTA. Can the Prime Minister tell us if he intends to defend our farmers and our supply management system, as well as all sectors of the Canadian economy? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I want to reassure my colleague and all members of this House and all Canadians that we very much understand what is in Canada's national interest and that we are working very hard with energy, and we're working with professional negotiators to defend Canada's national interests, including supply management and the interests of agricultural producers and the interests of my father.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government is creating a crisis of confidence. Tax changes have small businesses up in arms, farmers are worried, and tech startups may see capital dry up. Now, with NAFTA negotiations, the government has not even placed the auto industry as a top priority, and 140,000 jobs are at risk. When will this Liberal government start fighting for jobs in Canada rather than driving them away?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by congratulating the member for Durham on his nomination as official opposition critic for foreign affairs. Shadow, not critic. Okay. And let me assure him that at the NAFTA negotiating table, we are fighting very hard. We are fighting energetically. We are fighting, having done our homework, for the interests of all Canadian workers, very much including workers in the auto sector. I had a very productive consultation with the auto sector on Friday. Thank you.
Excellent. The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Minister. I am proud to shadow her. This is the third round of negotiations, and I'm not at the table, so I have to see what this government is saying in public, Mr. Speaker. I've yet to hear the Prime Minister stand up for our auto industry. I've yet to hear our Prime Minister stand up for our softwood lumber industry. I've yet to hear this Prime Minister stand up for jobs in our resource sector. It's time for the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, to pull up his fancy socks and start fighting for Canadian interests.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, let me assure the member opposite that we are fighting very, very hard at the NAFTA negotiating table for the interests of all Canadian workers. That very much includes workers in the auto sector, and I was pleased to have a very productive consultation with members of the auto sector just on Friday.
Excellent.
It very much includes workers in the natural resource sector, and we are fighting hard for an energy chapter. The interests of Canadian workers are absolutely at the heart of our negotiating strategy, and we're going to defend them.
Perfect. The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, on defending Canadians, Windsor City Council is calling on the federal government to make the protection and growth of Canada's automotive sector a key priority in NAFTA renegotiations. And their resolution is important to both Windsor and Essex County and all of Canada. With no national auto strategy, the Liberals are silent on their plan to fortify our automotive industry. Can this minister reassure the people of Windsor how the Government of Canada is actively and aggressively promoting our best interests in the auto industry?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to have this opportunity to reassure the people of Windsor and, in fact, all Canadians that we absolutely understand the importance of manufacturing and the automotive sector to our economy. Those are good, well-paying, very often unionized jobs, and we will fight to keep them here in Canada.
Excellent.
And I do want to point out, particularly to Americans who might be listening to us today, that North American content levels in Canada-produced vehicles are on average considerably higher than in vehicles produced in the U.S. and Mexico, and that is a good thing, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, further on transparency, this government claims it's seeking inclusion of strong environment and climate provisions in a modernized NAFTA, yet there are no environment advisors on the Minister's NAFTA Council. At the 11th hour, the Minister of Environment formed a NAFTA subgroup, promising openness and transparency, yet refusing to reveal the measures the Liberals are seeking in the New Deal. How can Canadians have faith that the Liberals are strengthening environment in trade deals without transparency? When will the minister come clean on what they're actually seeking for the environment at the negotiation table?
Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member opposite for the question. There are many environmentalists on my advisory council. There are also an Indigenous leader. There's also business leaders. There's also academics. We believe that we are going to have the strongest environmental protections. We're going to fight for them. We know that's the right thing to do. We understand the environment and the economy go together, and Canadians expect clean air, clean water, and action on climate change.
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government continues working hard for Liberal insiders and those wanting to join the Liberal insiders. Cynthia Wesley-Eskima ran unsuccessfully for the federal Liberals in 2011 in the riding of York Simcoe. Last year, the Liberals gave her an unbelievable $437,000 contract to consult on First Nation child welfare issues and write a report. How can the Prime Minister justify paying this Liberal insider $55,000 a month when seniors, veterans, and Indigenous communities struggles month to month just to survive?
Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to completely overhauling the Child and Family Services in full partnership with First Nations communities. The Special Representative met with 261 chiefs, experts, officials, advocates, and individuals with lived experience from coast to coast to coast to inform our commitment to First Nations child welfare reform. We look forward to receiving a report and recommendations on how we transform the system to better support and reflect the needs of First Nations children and to put their well-being first.
The Honourable Member for Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte.
Mr. Speaker, Cynthia Wesley-Eskima is unapologetic about her major taxpayer-funded payout. She believes that because she paid tax on the income, it's no big deal. She even went so far as to scold First Nations advocates for not blindly praising her work. The Liberals know what they did is wrong, yet they continue to do it. Can the minister explain how giving $437,000 to a Liberal insider is somehow helping Canadian Indigenous youth?
Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, we acknowledge the disproportionate number of Indigenous children in the child welfare system. We believe the transformation requires investments in children, families, and communities, not in lawyers, agencies, and non-Indigenous foster families. The MSR was critical to understanding that the needs of communities in order to overhaul the system and preventing children from entering the system at all.
The Honourable Member for Niagara Falls.
Mr. Speaker, the Ontario Superior Court of Justice is warning that it desperately needs more judges. And just last week, the BC courts were forced to shut down because of this government's indecision. So what is the problem with this government, Mr. Speaker? Why didn't they get these judicial appointments? They had all summer to do it. Now we have a situation where Ontario desperately needs 12 more judges. There are 57 vacancies. I've got a solution for them. If they can't get the job done, turn it over to borrow us, and we'll make the appointments. How about that?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. To reiterate, I take the appointment of Superior Court justices incredibly serious. Our government has taken significant steps to make the process for the appointment of judges open and transparent with a focus on embracing diversity. To date, I have been very pleased to appoint 109 Superior Court justices from across the country, including 22 deputy judges in the territories. I will continue to ensure that we appoint very meritorious candidates to fill the remaining vacancies across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the Minister responsible for seniors about an issue that occurred in the past months. Some seniors living separately, for no reason of their own, seem to be denied their GIS benefits. Can the Minister tell this House what action he has taken towards this to ensure our seniors get all the benefits they deserve?
Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the member for Long Range Mountains for her question and for her remarkable work on behalf of seniors. Our government recognizes Canadian seniors' contribution to building our country and is committed to improving the lives of our seniors. I would like to thank members on all sides of this House who brought this matter to my attention. I have tasked my officials to correct the rules and to contact affected seniors to review their applications. Our government, Mr. Speaker, is keen to improve the lives of seniors and will continue to do that.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, Conservatives have been raising the plight of the Rohingya people for over a year, and we haven't been getting answers from the government. The Prime Minister was asked directly about this in the spring, but did not agree to take the needed action at that time. Unlike many world leaders, the Prime Minister declined to discuss this ongoing ethnic cleansing in a speech to the UN, despite the escalation. So what, if anything, has the government's much-trumpeted Office of Human Rights, Freedoms and Inclusion been doing to help Rohingya?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we are absolutely seized by the urgent question of the persecution of the Rohingya. Based on reports from the region, this is ethnic cleansing, and it is important for Canada to condemn it in the strongest possible terms and to act. And it is important particularly to call on the military leadership to cease this horror. The Prime Minister has spoken directly with Aung San Suu Kyi about this. I have spoken to Kofi Annan. At the UN last week, we were working closely with our allies like Indonesia and Turkey on humanitarian.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, last Friday we learned that the outcome of the first lawsuit for victims of pyrrhotite will not be known for at least another year. You can imagine what the delays will be for subsequent trials. Worse, all of these victims are stuck in a gray zone where they have no legal recourse. And despite the severity of the situation, the government is dragging its feet or refusing to take action when it comes to setting up scientific standards for the presence of pyrrhotite. When will the government finally take action on behalf of these families who are stuck in this gray zone? Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for this update on pyrrhotite. This is a very important issue for people in that region. As my colleague knows, as soon as we came to power, we implemented significant measures to respect our commitments and to ensure that families affected by this situation are treated respectfully. We are happy to see that things have improved since then, and we continue to listen, and we continue to see families as a priority for the government. The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt. Mr. Speaker, as a Franco-Ontarian, I am proud to rise today. The Minister of Justice tabled significant reforms to the judicial appointment process. This reform promotes diversity, gender equality, and bilingualism within the judiciary. I'm happy to note that 5 out of the 8 judges appointed in Eastern Ontario are perfectly bilingual. Can the Minister inform this House about the actions that this government has taken to strengthen the bilingual capacity of our judiciary? Thank you. I would remind the Honourable Member, or perhaps his staffers, to direct comments to the Speaker.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from Nickel Belt for the question. I'm very pleased that the critical reforms to the judicial appointments process have led to increased bilingual capacity. As mentioned, 5 out of the 8 judges in northeastern Ontario are fluently bilingual. To build on these reforms, today our government is launching an action plan to enhance the bilingual capacity of Canada's superior courts. This multifaceted approach will ensure that we move forward so individuals can have a hearing before a judge in both official languages.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals abandoned a court of law to offer $10.5 million settlement payoff to Omar Khadr, a confessed terrorist. The Liberals chose not to defend Omar Khadr's outrageous claim. They just wanted it all to go away. And then the Liberals tried to hide this extravagant, outrageous payoff from Canadians and Americans. Mr. Speaker, did the Cabinet follow this deceitful course, knowing of Mr. Khadr's victims' outstanding court-ordered claims against him?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, sadly, this was a case of the rights of a Canadian in jail being violated by Canadian government officials. A settlement in this case was court-supervised and based upon the hard facts, the law, the Constitution, and 2 unequivocal rulings by the Supreme Court of Canada. The decision was taken. Rights are not optional, Mr. Speaker. Violating them is costly. There was no chance of winning the civil lawsuit. As much as $40 million could have been lost, and a settlement in this case saved taxpayers millions of dollars.
Order.
The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, after an onslaught of critical tweets from Donald Trump, supply management is now being targeted by American lobby groups. In Quebec, we're proud of our family farm model, an agricultural system where the farmers are owners. The Liberals have already given up on our dairy producers during negotiations with Europe. With NAFTA, they'd better not try that again. Will the minister make a solemn commitment that supply management will be maintained in its entirety? The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
For my honourable colleague, that this government is the government that will protect supply management, and this is the party that fought to put it in place. This is also the government that put the innovation package together to make sure that supply management in the dairy sector in this country thrives. I can assure my honourable colleague that this government has and will continue to support supply management. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to human rights and democracy, the Prime Minister's actions are contradictory and toothless. He has said nothing about the direct attack on democracy in Catalonia. How can he justify his silence? What is he waiting for to call out the Spanish government under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which Canada and Spain ratified and signed? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, Canada has a friendly relationship with Spain. The question of Catalonia is a domestic issue within Spain. We hope that a solution to this domestic dispute will be found, and we hope that it will be harmonious and respectful within the Spanish constitutional framework.
Honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. I had 8 town halls recently in my riding, and I think not surprisingly heard from many constituents concerns about the proposed tax changes. One young doctor made a point that I haven't heard from others, and that is he looked at the demographics, how many doctors are near retirement, how they've structured their income and their practice around the tax laws as they've been for decades. And he fears that we might have an unintended consequence of tax changes in a doctor shortage, as many doctors near retirement might decide to retire early. My question to the Minister is, can we phase in tax changes or grandfather certain professions?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
We understand that getting to a fair tax system, a system that doesn't encourage people to incorporate so they pay a lower tax rate than middle-class Canadians, requires listening. It requires understanding the specifics of different cases. So I appreciate the member bringing forward this idea. We are certainly listening to people to make sure we get this right. We're making sure that as we move forward that we grandfather existing amounts. That's important. We'll also make sure that we consider how to best move forward in a way that gets to our objective while considering the ongoing goal of investing in our economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Tabling of documents. Order. I would invite the colleagues to take their conversations into the hallways, and I would ask those colleagues, most of whom are listening, of course, to aid me by saying shh. Thank you. Order. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de projet de loi émanant du gouvernement.
Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees.
First reading of Senate public bills. Motions. Presenting petitions. The Honourable Member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to present a petition signed by campers who stayed at the Busy Beaver Campground in Hilton Township, Ontario, located on the historical St. Joseph Island in the riding of Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing. The petitioners call on the government to ensure that campgrounds with fewer than 5